Hello. My name is Kim Addis. I am the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching, and you have just joined the Frame of Mind Coaching podcast, where we welcome guests who are willing and open to get coached live and in person right on the podcast. Today, it is my absolute pleasure, really, truly my pleasure, to introduce to you my guest. His name is Chris Ning. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Ing.
Ing. From Circle of Care. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So Chris and I know each other a little bit because I came into Circle of Care to do a presentation. I don't even remember when. And he was in the room, and he's the, what is it, VP Finance?
VP Finance, correct.
Okay. And after that, we ended up coaching the whole team of senior leaders from Circle of Care, and Chris was one of them. So I want to do two things. I want you to explain what Circle of Care is and what you do, and then I want you to share with everybody what your coaching experience was like.
Yeah, so Circle of Care is essentially a home care health institution. So we basically treat clients in the home. And as you know, as most home healthcare organizations, COVID has had an impact. It's been a challenge to maintain staff, maintain safety, maintain things like PPE. There's been a worldwide shortage. So we have faced the same challenges that most organizations have, keeping our staff, clients safe and just operating. Currently our office is essentially, nobody's actually at our head office. We're basically transitioned to work from home.
Right. And I remember when it all hit, when everything went down, like your president, she was swamped. She was slammed. Like she was trying to manage all these moving parts that were all foreign and new to everybody. And it was like, I guess, a bit of a chaotic period.
Yeah, lots of credit to Carrie Lucky, who's our CEO. She was one of the first to have the organization. We were one of the first to go completely work from home. And we did that very early.
Yeah,
so
smart.
Credit to her for that. Yeah.
Okay, so you got coached with one of our coaches on the Frame of Mind coaching team. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for those people who are listening who aren't even sure what coaching is and what they can expect. I just want you to share a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's rare that you turn yourself inward and try to look at how you are thinking about things. Often we just go through things and we just do things the way we always do. It's pretty rare that you actually turn inward and look at how you're thinking about things, how you view things, and your beliefs. So the process of journaling, and I used to journal actually prior to the coaching.
Really?
However, so I still journal, but it was mostly activity.
Okay.
It's rare that I journaled my thoughts, my learnings, and that was the big change with the coaching. I actually had to think, okay, this is the reason why. This is my belief behind it. So in that sense, it just brings out a layer of awareness in yourself. If you're you have certain tendencies, it just brings it out to light.
It's a pretty interesting process.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what was because I know you and I spoke not that long ago before we decided to do this podcast together, and you shared with me to me, it was really interesting to see the results or the outcomes of your coaching, which was very tangible and measurable. So can you just share with the audience what that experience was? Yeah.
So investing has been one of my hobbies since I was a teenager. And I was always fair at it. But I never had the outperformance. All these years, I've never had the outperformance. And then during the coaching process, we just went through how I think about things and how during a crisis, I would get negative, and I would often stay negative for far too long, things like the 2008. So we delved into my thinking on that. And I realized I had this tendency to stay negative for a long time and not take advantage of changes in the situation. And I was able to do that this time. And it, like I showed you the graph, it was basically a record performance for me.
Yeah.
After doing this for many, many years.
So record performance in your investment portfolio,
Yeah.
not because we taught you how to make better investments, but we showed you how your thinking is affecting your decision making.
Yes, correct.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so I'm thrilled about that. I mean, it was so exciting when you sent me the graph and I saw the change in your
Yeah.
portfolio results. I was like, so cool because it's in graph format. So, I
Yes.
mean, I was just delighted. But let's talk today. So you're coming to the podcast. What is the challenge you're facing right now?
Yeah, so as finance people, we get asked for all kinds of advice, and it's not always work related. It's often personal related, you know. And I noticed that sometimes I have trouble influencing others in helping them achieve what they want to achieve. And since talking to you, I've tried to shift things a little bit. Um, for example, you know, one of the questions you asked when I first met you is write down what you really, really, really want. I think that was
Yes,
your first.
it
And
was me.
yes, and I noticed that half the room or a large percentage of the room had some trouble with that. So, and these were senior executives. We were doing it for the corporation, but
Right.
rarely do people necessarily do it for themselves. So I noticed that one of my good friends, he had a bit of a disconnect between what he stated as what he really, really, really wanted and what his activity was. And I tried to go through your, what you said. I asked him, what do you really, really want? And he gave me all these goals that about starting a manufacturing business or perhaps farmland, traditional business, but then he allocates no amount of time to it.
Okay.
And I did point that, I did try to point the disconnect. He agreed. He said, yes, that's a problem. And then he said, I'm not sure where to start, but I did say you have this big disconnect.
Okay, good.
But at least I've brought him his awareness to it.
Yeah. Okay. 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 This is great. So you actually have two questions.
Yeah,
Question number one is how do I influence someone? And the question number two is actually how do I coach someone?
yes,
Okay. And they're connected, those questions. But let's just talk about how you influence someone first. Because I can't tell you how many leaders I coach that have a deep desire to positively influence the members of their team, but more importantly, their kids. How do we influence our children? So I want to really stop for a moment and talk about influence because it's an important subject. And I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm
yeah,
talking about how do we be a positive influence in the lives of others? So let's start there. And then we're going to move into coaching. So thing number one is in order for me to influence anybody, I need to model the behavior and the thinking that I want other people to consider adopting. So I need to model the behavior. So if I want my children to be super healthy, for example, I need to eat healthy foods. I
right.
need to make decisions about what I consume, right? So, and I need to model that first. Before I tell anybody what to do, ever, I really want to make sure that I'm behaving in
Yeah,
ways that I want other people to consider adopting. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is one of the greatest uh, areas of influence, or the greatest, I don't even know how to call it, but the greatest impacts on influence is relationship. So when I know that someone really cares about me, when I know that someone sees the best in me, when I know that someone is completely on my side and behind me, I'm much more likely to tune into their thoughts and advice and direction than people that I don't have that kind of relationship with. So when we look at influence, we want to look at the nature of the relationship.
mm,
And more specifically, this one piece. So I could be friends with someone and we could have a long-term friendship, but if the person that I'm friends with doesn't think that I see them in the best light, if they don't think that I see the best in them and see their greatest qualities over and above everything else, then my point of influence is weak.
I
So
see.
what you see in your friend and what you tell him you see is very important.
I see.
Okay? So
Yeah,
when you see his flaws, his faults, his his less than best qualities, he's not as open to your influence because he doesn't like what you see in him. And so he shields himself from your vision. But if your vision is strong, is positive, is seeing him in a better light than he sees himself, then he's going to be very open to your influence. The third thing is coaching.
Yeah.
How do we influence someone? By coaching them. And a lot of times we think that coaching means we tell someone what to do. That's not really coaching. Sometimes on this podcast, because we only have a few short minutes, we end up cutting corners in coaching. But in true form, coaching, you did something amazing. You said, what is it that you really, really want? And he told you, and what you did is you pointed out his flaws. You said, hey, there's a disconnect, right?
Right.
And he's like, yeah. And what you did was you created discomfort, right? And it's not terrible to create discomfort in coaching. So you're like, hey, you want this, but you're doing that. There's a gap.
Yeah.
But then you left him there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
like,
I did.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I've done exactly what you said not to do, which is start off telling people, this is best practice. I think I do that a lot. This is best practice. This is how you stop procrastination. This is,
Right.
So I do that a lot. So that's good that you pointed that out.
So the question becomes like, why is it he's not the only person in the world who says he wants something, but does the complete opposite? Right? How many people want to lose tons of weight, but they're out with their friends, so they drink and they have cake and eat all kinds of other things, right? Like, because we're human, we often find ourselves in a position where our actions aren't always lined up with our goals. In fact, that is my specialty, is to work with people who behave in ways that contradict their goals. So the question becomes why? And now we're getting into coaching. And so as he's telling you, hey, here are all the things that I want, you want to learn more about it. Why do you want those things? What do you think it will do to improve your life, et cetera, et cetera? And so you're learning about it and you're saying, okay, so you want these things, but you're not really taking any actions towards that. How come? What's stopping you? What's getting in the way? And that's the really important question. And when he answers that question, what comes forward? All his beliefs. Well, I can't start a business. I don't have enough money. I can't travel to Europe. Like, there's a pandemic. I can't, and he will list all the beliefs he has that prevent him from taking action. And now we're in the middle of coaching, because once we are able to identify a person's beliefs, now we're able to influence the way a person looks at things, the way a person thinks, what they believe to be true. But if you have not been able to surface or identify his beliefs, now you're still in the realm of, but why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah. So I haven't dug down a second layer, which sounds like, okay, that's
exactly. Good. So you want to understand, what are the beliefs he has that prevent him from taking actions that will allow him to reach his goals? Yeah. And when you understand the beliefs, now you can start to challenge those beliefs a little bit.
Right.
Right. So if he says, I have no money, you say, hey, would you be open to exploring ways that you could have money?
Right. Yeah. I was always baffled as to why I was able to influence some people in a positive way. I mean, some people do. I am able to reach out to some people, and others I'm not. I was always baffled by that disconnect, why I could have success with some and not others. So that is a good point, that I am not.
You're not digging deep.
Right. Not digging deep enough.
So when you talk to someone who is behaving in ways that contradict their goals, and you say, hey, why don't you do this? And they experience, or you experience, their resistance. Mm-hmm. Resistance is an indicator that they have some pretty hardcore beliefs that they're not quite ready to let go of. Mm-hmm. But your job is to bring them to the surface.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah, very good point.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's absolutely helpful. Yes.
So I
And,
know like we did this in a very fast way, but
yeah.
essentially that's what we do in coaching,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is we help people look at how their thinking is impacting their results.
Yeah.
And
And I have another friend who is a heavy procrastinator, and I've been trying to help her for many years and had no success. And the route I tried again was I pointed things out. I said, um, uh, focus on high impact items rather than like not all your activities equal. Some activity has very low impact. So I've told her focus on high impact items and things like that. And she's trying a little bit of it, but still struggles with the long-term procrastination.
here's the thing, like you're a leader, right? And as a leader, you see friends or employees, struggle or not perform as well as they could. And as leaders, we want everybody to perform. That's how we are wired, right? The thing
Yeah.
is that what we tend to do, our knee-jerk reaction, is to say, here, just do this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easy, just do this. And
Yes.
so one of the biggest mistakes that leaders make is they focus on actions, they focus on behaviors, as opposed to focusing on beliefs. Because
Yes.
when
And
we
that.
focus on beliefs, we're not giving direction, we're not giving instruction, right? What we're doing is we're helping them remove the obstacles that are preventing them from taking intelligent action.
Right.
Yeah? Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yes. Makes perfect sense. I have to just practice doing that.
Yes. Now, when I came to speak in your organization, I handed out a sheet. And on the sheet was 5 steps to phenomenal coaching. Do you still have it?
I don't recall.
If you do
Yeah.
not, I will send it to you again
Sure.
and keep it by your side and
Yeah.
just use it as a refresher so that
Yeah.
you're not jumping ahead and you're kind of going through all the steps.
Yeah. I am trying to use your principle of get their story first, which is what you gave a great example in the presentation to our circle of care.
You remember that one?
Yeah, I do remember. Get their story first, and I think you used the example of your son on the couch, and so I try to follow that principle, but perhaps I'm not going as deep as I could.
So it's get their story. That's actually step 1 is check your story at the door. Like, right?
Right.
So when you think you know what's going on, when you have an opinion, when you are clear, you think you're clear about what's happening with this person, take that idea and put it aside. So walk into the conversation with a blank slate. So
Right.
put your story aside. Step number 2 is get their story. Step
Yeah.
number 3 is dig under their story, which is really get more of the story,
Right.
get all the story, get all the stuff they're not telling you. Step 4 is identify their beliefs.
Yes.
And that's where you stop short, right? Like that's where
Right.
you didn't go quite there
Yes.
yet.
Yes, and I also didn't check my beliefs because generally I'm trained in finance, or so I have a certain set of rules, and I'll just say you should do this, and perhaps I should just hold on to that thought, and then
Exactly. Don't
yeah,
assume you know what somebody else
right,
knows or what somebody else has done or what somebody else is up to, and always assume positive intent.
yeah,
And step number 5, after you've identified their beliefs, is challenge their beliefs. And by challenge, I don't mean, stick up your duel and let's fight. What I mean is like push gently and show them that perhaps there's a different way of looking at things.
yeah,
Right? So
yeah,
those are the steps. If you want, I'll send you the sheet again.
yeah, absolutely. I've got some of the principles, but I think there are certain layers that I'm missing.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Wow, this was great. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank
yeah.
you
Thanks for
for
having me.
for working at it, for trying out these principles, for bringing them into your world. I'm so excited by that. And thank you for sharing your challenge. I don't think you're unique in the world. I think a lot of people wonder, how can I do a better job of influencing and making other people's lives just a little bit better? So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And for those of you who are listening, I hope you picked something up that was valuable today. And if there's anybody out there who has a challenge that they want to share on the podcast, please reach out to me. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. And if you have a challenge that you're not so comfortable sharing on the podcast, reach out to me anyway. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. Chris, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.